I'm having difficulty with GMB listings. Unique, I think, having bought out a couple of competitors with multiple GMB locations. The locations were originally set up using postal mailboxes or the mechanic's home address for mail verifications. Between the three of us, there are 10 to 12 locations throughout an approximately 100-mile radius. Most locations have had the address and pointer removed by Google, and I'm unable to re-verify. Yeah, they were suspended, either suspended or in re-verification status, which in many cases will unpublish them now. I have a number of GBPs that are in re-verification status that remained published, which is great because I can still get leads from them. I just can't make any, I can't edit them at all. I can't publish Google business posts. Can't make any changes to them whatsoever, but they're still published. But I've seen it both ways where re-verification unpublishes it and re-verification leaves it published. Suspension is going to unpublish it. And so in any case, the question then is, there are many limitations on service area businesses that create serious ranking issues for us. Yes, that is correct. And that is true across the board. Any service area business, Google tells us in their acceptable use policy that we're supposed to unpublish the street address or not display, right? Hide from display the street address. But anybody that's been doing local SEO for any amount of time, you already know if you publish the street address, you're going to see a performance boost, right? A ranking gain out of just publishing the street address. So I encourage all of my tree care contractors, many of which have unpublished street address, that first I discuss with them, I find out if their business address that the GBP was originally verified with or to is still their business address. And if so, do they have actual like like a business license or utilities or anything like that that are in their businesses or their company's name that come to that address? So any kind of bills or documentation and everything, as long as we have the proper documentation, then I tell them, listen, I recommend that you publish the street address. Understand, and I always make sure they're very clear. I'm 100% transparent about this with the clients. I tell them there's a level of risk involved, right? If we publish the street address, it is likely going to trigger a re-verification or even possibly a suspension. But that's why I clearly get all of the details up front as to whether or not they have a real valid business location that we, with all the proper paperwork and everything, so that in case it triggers re-verification or suspension, we can either submit for reinstatement or go through the verification process, and we stand a very good chance of recovering it or getting it reinstated or re-verifying it, whatever, if that makes sense. But I let them make the decision. I give them all of that, like, I ask them the questions, make sure that they have everything, and then I tell them, like, look, it'll perform better if we publish the street address, but you need to be aware of the risks. And I'm going to let you make the decision. And many times they're going to say, well, what do you suggest? And I tell them, I think it's worth the risk as long as you have the proper paperwork and everything. And we might go through a temporary period of time where it's suspended or in re-verification process status. But we will most likely, I'm not giving you a 100% guarantee that we'll be able to get it recovered, but we most likely will. So it's up to you. Are you a risk taker or not? And I let them make the decision. Okay. That way they don't pass it off on me and say, well, you ruined mine. No, I didn't. I gave you the decision. It was your decision, right? And that's why you have to be 100% transparent about that up front. Okay. So what can you do to fix it? There's not much you can do, man. That's why I don't recommend doing spam GBPs at all anymore. Like, I don't teach that at all. Not a bit. I still have a number of my own, and I'm in the process of rebranding some of those now, and I'm doing it very slowly, very methodically, so that I don't get them suspended or re-verified because I can't re-verify them. Like, I've got dozens of GBPs out there that I can't re-verify if they go into that status. So I'm doing kind of brand change, name change, very methodically, very slowly, in a very specific way. I talk about this in the mastermind on how to do that kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is, I don't recommend buying GBPs or trying to get GBPs or verify GBPs on non-real valid business locations. Like, in other words, if they're spammed GBPs that aren't verified to real valid physical business locations, don't bother anymore. That's what I'm saying. Because it's so hard to keep them. Even if you can get them verified, which is difficult to do, it's very difficult to keep them. It's like Google's gotten a lot better at determining whether a GBP is a real valid business location. One of the other things that I've experienced was buying GBPs that were reclaimed, right? So GBPs that were claimed by somebody somehow, and then they changed the Google business category from whatever it was originally to whatever tree service, which is what I always need it for. I found that those never perform as well as if you just start with a new GBP or a GBP that was originally categorized in that service category. If it changes, if it's been reclaimed or claimed for the first time, and then the category is changed, I found that they never perform well. And so the reason I'm saying that now is because of all of that over the last, well, I haven't even really attempted any GBP stuff like to create new ones or buy or purchase or anything in probably a year and a half, maybe even 2 years now. Because of 3 years ago when they started the video verification stuff, I just said, you know what? Like I realized then that the handwriting was on the wall. It was very apparent to me that the days of us being able to go out and get GBPs on a whim and then spend money and effort and time and all that working on building them up was futile. It was those days were over, number one, and it was in my it's a not a good business model to go out and try to get new GBPs to replace the ones that we're missing unless you have real valid business locations. That's why, Robert, I teach the DHA model, which is build organic only lead gen assets. And then you use those to then sell traditional retainer based services to companies or businesses in the areas that you have lead gen assets already ranked for, because then you can associate your organic lead gen asset with their GBP and vice versa, instead of having to try to secure GBPs and verify them when you don't have a real valid business location. That's what I'm doing in my agency because I don't want to spend time, effort, money, resources, etc. on a GBP that is not a real valid business location. Because what happens when Google decides that it's spam and they either put it in a re-verification status or they suspend it? Now you're screwed. You're not going to be able to reinstate it. So you just pissed away all that effort and all that time, all that money, everything. And I'm not building my business that way, guys. I like getting paid from the work that I do for years to come as much as possible, right? That's why I don't like doing like churn and burn affiliate stuff and launch jacking stuff and all that kind of stuff. Why? Because it's the treadmill, right? The hamster wheel of constantly having to redo stuff over and over and over again. And I hate rework. So I got away from doing, like I said, I still got a number of GBP assets of my own that I'm trying to rebrand and doing it very, very carefully, so that I don't trigger suspension. But as far as getting new ones, I don't get new ones. The only way I will work on GBP or get, GBPs now is if it's a client's GBP. And then I will work on that because it can be re-verified, reinstated if needed. Okay, so unfortunately, I can't give you any good answers for that, man, except for avoid GBPs unless you have real valid business locations to verify them to, which I know isn't the answer you wanted to hear, but it's the answer that I'm giving you because, again, in my own business, I'm not going to go out and build or secure GBPs that don't have real valid business locations behind them for all the reasons I just described.